The great hall of the Galactic Assembly had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 species sat in their seats, their eyes fixed on the massive screen at the center of the room. Some of them had traveled for weeks to reach Valeth Prime. Some had ruled their planets for centuries. But in this moment, they all looked like frightened children. Ambassador Rethi of the Valani Collective stood at the central platform. His blue skin had turned pale. His 4 hands trembled as he pressed the button to play the transmission again. The message had arrived just 1 hour ago, cutting through every communication channel in the galaxy. It had interrupted trade negotiations. It had stopped military exercises. It had woken sleeping rulers from their beds. The screen flickered to life. A face appeared. It belonged to High Commander Veth of the Korvathi Empire. His gray scales were covered in blood. Behind him, fire and smoke filled what remained of his command ship. Explosions echoed in the background. Screams of dying soldiers mixed with the sound of tearing metal. "This is High Commander Veth of the Korvathi Imperial Fleet," the recording began. His voice cracked with fear. "We are transmitting on all emergency frequencies. We require immediate assistance. Our border fleets have been destroyed. Our colonies are burning. We are facing complete annihilation." He paused. Another explosion rocked his ship. A piece of the ceiling fell behind him, and he did not even look at it. His eyes stared directly into the camera, and in those eyes was something no one had ever seen in a Korvathi officer: terror. "The humans," he continued. "The humans have declared war." The recording ended. The screen went dark, and the great hall remained silent. Ambassador Rethi looked around the room. He had served in the assembly for 200 years. He had seen wars begin and end. He had watched empires rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like this. The Korvathi Empire was not just powerful. It was the most powerful civilization in the known galaxy. They controlled 300 star systems. Their military fleet numbered in the tens of thousands. Their technology was centuries ahead of most species. For the past 3,000 years, no one had dared to challenge them. No one had even thought about it. And now they were begging for help. From humans. Ambassador Yeth of the Morthani Federation was the first to speak. His insect-like body clicked nervously as he rose from his seat. "This must be a mistake," he said. "The humans?" "The same humans who could not even develop faster-than-light travel without buying it from the Netheri. The same humans who have been denied membership in this assembly 17 times? "There is no mistake," Ambassador Rethi replied. "We have confirmed the transmission. The Korvathi border fleet has been completely destroyed. 240 warships. Gone in less than 1 standard day." Murmurs spread through the hall. 240 warships. That was more than most species had in their entire military. The Korvathi had lost them in a single day. Ambassador Liss of the Halani Consensus raised her hand. Her tall, thin body swayed slightly as she stood. "How is this possible?" she asked. "The humans have only been traveling between stars for 2 centuries. They have perhaps 50 colonies. Their total military force was estimated at less than 100 vessels. How could they destroy a Korvathi fleet?" Rethi shook his head. "We do not know. Our intelligence reports appear to have been ... incomplete." "Incomplete?" Ambassador Yeth clicked angrily. "You mean wrong. Completely wrong. You told us the humans were primitive. You told us they were no threat to anyone. You told us they were too emotional, too short-lived, too fragile to ever matter in galactic affairs." "That was the assessment of every intelligence agency in the galaxy," Rethi replied defensively. "Every species that studied humans came to the same conclusion. Then every species was blind." The argument continued, but Ambassador Rethi was no longer listening. He was thinking about the humans he had met over the years. They had always seemed so ordinary. They smiled too much. They talked too much. They felt too much. They cried at sad stories and laughed at simple jokes. They formed attachments to pets and plants and even machines. They were, by every galactic standard, a weak and sentimental species. But Rethi remembered something else. He remembered a human diplomat who had visited the assembly 5 years ago. The diplomat had been denied entry, just like all the others before him. But before he left, he had said something strange. "You look at us and see weakness," the diplomat had said. "You see our short lives and think we have no patience. You see our emotions and think we have no control. But you are making a mistake that many have made before. Our emotions are not our weakness. They are our strength. Love makes us build. Fear makes us prepare. And anger." The diplomat had paused and smiled. It was not a happy smile. Anger makes us unstoppable. Rethi had dismissed those words as empty boasting. Now he was not so sure. The doors of the great hall burst open. A young Villani officer ran inside, his face filled with panic. "Ambassador," he shouted, "we have received new information. The human fleet is not stopping. They have entered Korvathi core territory. They are heading directly for Korva Prime." The hall erupted in chaos. Korva Prime was the Korvathi homeworld. It was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. No enemy had ever come within 100 light years of it. "How many ships?" Rethi asked. The officer checked his datapad. His hands were shaking. "Our sensors show approximately 400 human warships." "But Ambassador... That is not the most disturbing part." "What could be more disturbing than that?" The officer swallowed hard. "The Korvathi sent a surrender offer. Full terms. Complete withdrawal from all disputed territories. Payment of any reparations the humans demanded. Everything. And the humans rejected it. They did not negotiate. They did not respond. They simply kept advancing." The officer looked up, his eyes wide with fear. "Ambassador, they are not trying to win a war. They are trying to end a species." The great hall fell silent once more. 47 species, representing trillions of beings, sat in their seats and felt something they had not felt in centuries. Fear. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, a species they had dismissed as primitive and emotional was doing something no one had ever done before. They were bringing the mighty Korvathi Empire to its knees. And no one knew why. Ambassador Rethi finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Contact the human government," he said. "We need to understand what has happened. We need to know what the Korvathi did to deserve this." He paused and looked at the dark screen where High Commander Veth's terrified face had appeared just moments ago. "Because whatever it was," Rethi continued, "it must have been terrible. No species goes to war like this without a reason. No species fights with such fury unless something precious has been taken from them." He turned to face the assembly one final time. "I fear, my fellow ambassadors, that we are about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. And I fear even more that we will not like what we learn." The hall remained silent. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the affairs of mortals. But somewhere among those stars, human warships were burning their way through Korvathi territory, leaving nothing but fire and death in their wake, and this was only the beginning. 6 months before the Korvathi sent their desperate message to the galaxy, the colony world of New Bizan was a peaceful place. Green hills stretched toward distant mountains. Rivers cut through valleys filled with farms and small towns. The capital city, with its 2 million residents, was busy with the ordinary activities of ordinary life. Children went to school. Workers went to their jobs. Families planned vacations and worried about bills and dreamed about the future. Captain Park? Tay stood on the observation deck of the orbital defense station and watched his homeworld turn slowly below him. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in the United Earth Defense Force, most of them at boring outposts where nothing ever happened. New Bizen was supposed to be his final assignment before retirement. His daughter, Park Yuna, worked beside him as a junior communications officer. She was 24, bright and ambitious, with her whole life ahead of her. Park Tay often watched her work and felt proud. She would go far, he thought. She would do great things. The alarm changed everything. It started as a single beep on the sensor console. Then another. Then a dozen. Then 100. Park Tay rushed to the screen and felt his blood turn cold. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Big ships. Military ships. Korvathi ships. Yuna, he said, keeping his voice calm. Hail them on all frequencies. Ask them to identify themselves and state their purpose. Yuna's fingers flew across her console. Channel open, Captain. Transmitting now. They waited. The Korvathi ships moved closer. There was no response. Transmit again, Park Tay ordered. Tell them this is a protected human colony. Tell them we have a non-aggression treaty with the Korvathi Empire. Transmitting, Captain. Yuna's voice was steady, but her father could see the fear in her eyes. Still no response. The Korvathi ships entered orbit. There were 30 of them, each one larger than the entire new Bizen defense fleet combined. They moved with terrible purpose, spreading out to surround the planet, and then the smaller ships launched. Park Tay had never seen anything like them. They were round, flat, and covered with mechanical arms. Thousands of them descended toward the planet's surface like a swarm of metal insects. They ignored the defense stations. They ignored the military bases. They flew directly toward the cities. What are they doing? Yuna whispered. They found out very quickly. The collector drones, as they would later be called, had one purpose. They grabbed people, men, women, children. It did not matter who they were or what they were doing. The drones simply picked them up and carried them back to the waiting ships. Park Tay watched in horror as the capital city descended into chaos. People ran through the streets, screaming. Families were torn apart as drones grabbed some members and left others behind. Parents tried to shield their children. Lovers held on to each other until the machines pulled them apart. We have to do something, Yuna screamed. Park Tay was already moving. He ordered every ship in the defense fleet to attack. He called for evacuation shuttles. He sent distress signals on every frequency. But he knew, deep in his heart, that it was already too late. The Korvathi warships destroyed the defense fleet in minutes. Small human ships exploded like toys against the might of the Imperial Navy. Park Tay watched his friends die, one by one, their names flashing red on his screen as their ships were torn apart. But they bought time. Precious, terrible time. Yuna, Park Tay said, grabbing his daughter's arm. Take the emergency shuttle. Get as many people on board as you can. Go, now. Father, I cannot leave you. You can. You will. He looked at her, and for a moment, he was not a captain anymore. He was just a father saying goodbye to his child. Someone has to survive. Someone has to tell them what happened here. Someone has to make sure this never happens again. Tears ran down Yuna's face. She wanted to argue. She wanted to stay. But she saw the look in her father's eyes and understood. This was not a request. This was his final order. She hugged him one last time. Then she ran. Park Tay turned back to his console. The Korvathi flagship was approaching the station. Its weapons were charging. He had maybe 2 minutes left to live. He spent those 2 minutes doing two things. First, he transmitted every piece of sensor data he had collected to Earth. Every image, every reading, every second of footage showing what the Korvathi were doing to his people. Second, he set his station's reactor to overload. The explosion destroyed the station and damaged 2 Korvathi destroyers. It was a small victory, meaningless in the face of such overwhelming force. But Park Tae died knowing he had fought back. He died knowing his daughter had escaped. He died knowing that Earth would learn the truth. 3,000 people escaped New Bizen that day. 3,000 out of 2.3 million. Among them was Lieutenant Kong Woo, a tactical officer who had recorded everything from his shuttle sensors. Every drone, every capture, every scream. 2 weeks later, that footage played on every screen on Earth. Admiral Han Soo watched it alone in her office. She was 61 years old, the Supreme Commander of the United Earth Defense Force. She had built her career on patience and careful planning. She never raised her voice. She never made emotional decisions. Her colleagues called her the Stone because nothing seemed to affect her. But as she watched the footage from New Bizen, something changed in her eyes. Something hard and cold and terrible. When the footage ended, she called her intelligence chief into her office. "Tell me," she said quietly, "how long has this been happening?" The intelligence chief was pale. "We did research after receiving the footage, Admiral. We found patterns. Colonies that disappeared over the past 50 years. Ships that vanished without explanation. We always assumed it was accidents, radiation, system failures." "How many?" 47 colonies. Approximately 18 million people. He paused. "We believe the Korvathi have been harvesting humans for decades. Our scientists found evidence that human neural tissue contains a compound that extends Korvathi lifespan. They have been taking our people and processing them." Admiral Han Soo sat very still for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. 18 million people. Taken, used, killed. And we never knew. No, Admiral. We never knew. Han Soo stood up. She walked to her window and looked out at the city below. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that their species had been prey for half a century. "Call an emergency session of the United Earth Council," she said. "Inform them that I am recommending immediate declaration of war against the Korvathi Empire. Admiral, the Korvathi are the most powerful species in the galaxy. Our fleet is a fraction of theirs. We cannot possibly win." Han Soo turned around. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something ancient and terrible. "You are wrong," she said. "We have something the Korvathi do not have. We have 18 million reasons to fight. We have 18 million ghosts demanding justice. And we have something else. What is that, Admiral?" Han Soo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We have been preparing for this day since the first time we looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. We hoped we would find friends out there. But we always prepared for enemies." She walked past her intelligence chief toward the door. "It is time to show the galaxy what humans do to their enemies." The galaxy had made a terrible mistake about humanity. They looked at humans and saw a young species. They saw short lifespans and emotional outbursts. They saw a civilization that had only discovered faster than light travel 200 years ago. They saw weakness. What they did not see were the hidden shipyards buried deep inside asteroid belts. They did not see the weapons research laboratories disguised as mining stations. They did not see the military academies where officers trained for wars that might never come. They did not see the plans, carefully prepared over generations, for the day when humanity would have to fight for its survival. The Korvathi Empire saw these things now. They saw them too late. Fleet Admiral Yoon. They stood on the bridge of the battleship Eternal Fury and watched his fleet emerge from slipspace. 400 warships spread out in perfect formation, their weapons already powered and ready. Ahead of them, the Corvathi border fleet was scrambling to respond. Admiral Yoon was 60 years old, a career military officer who had spent his entire life preparing for a war he hoped would never happen. Now that it had happened, he felt strangely calm. There was no fear in his heart. There was no doubt in his mind. There was only purpose. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the Corvathi fleet is moving to intercept. 240 ships. They are ailing us. Ignore them." "Sir, they are demanding to know our intentions. They say they have done nothing to provoke military action." Admiral Yoon's face did not change. "They took 18 million of our people. They harvested them like animals. And they say they did nothing." He paused. "Open the channel. All frequencies. Let them hear what I have to say." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Yoon Dae spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Fleet Admiral Yoon Dae of the United Earth Defense Force. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to discuss. We are here because you took our people. You killed our children. You thought we would never find out. You were wrong." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The doctrine of the United Earth Defense Force is simple. When our people are threatened, we respond with absolute force. When our people are taken, we do not stop until we have taken everything in return. You have awakened something that was sleeping. Now you will face the consequences." He cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "All ships, attack." The Battle of the Border, as it would later be called, lasted 11 minutes. Historians would study it for centuries, trying to understand how a seemingly inferior force had achieved such complete victory. The answer was simple. Human ships were built differently. Other species built ships to last. They used elegant designs that minimized resource usage. They created beautiful vessels that could operate for centuries with minimal maintenance. They valued efficiency above all else. Humans built ships to kill. Every human warship was covered in armor plating 3 times thicker than any alien equivalent. Every human warship carried weapons that sacrificed accuracy for raw destructive power. Every human warship had backup systems for the backup systems for the backup systems. They were ugly, brutal machines designed for one purpose: violence. And the crews inside them were even more dangerous than the ships themselves. Commander Oh Jing commanded the destroyer Indomitable. She was 42 years old, a mother of 2. And she had lost her parents when their colony disappeared 15 years ago. She had always suspected foul play. Now she knew the truth. 15 minutes into the battle, her ship was hit by Corvathi weapons fire. The main engine failed. Life support was damaged. Half her crew was dead or dying. Any reasonable commander would have surrendered. Oh Jin was not a reasonable commander. "Navigation," she said calmly, blood dripping down her face from a head wound. "Set course for the Corvathi flagship. Maximum thrust." Her navigation officer, a young man named Cho Min-soo, looked at her with wide eyes. "Commander, that is a collision course." "I know. Do it." "Commander." "That is an order, Lieutenant." "All hands, this is the commander. Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." Everyone except bridge crew. The crew obeyed. They trusted their commander. They did not understand why she was doing this, but they trusted her dot as the escape pods launched into space. The Indomitable accelerated toward the Corvathi flagship. The massive enemy vessel tried to move, but it was too slow, too big, too confident in its own invincibility. Oh Jin opened a communication channel. "This is Commander Oh Jin of the UEDF Indomitable. I have a message for the Corvathi High Command." She paused as her ship drew closer to the flagship. Alarms screamed around her. Fires burned on every deck. The remaining bridge crew stood at their stations, knowing they were about to die. "For New Bizen," Ho Jin said. "For everyone you took. For everyone you killed. This is what humans do. We do not surrender. We do not forget. We do not forgive." The Indomitable struck the Korvathi flagship's engine core at full speed. The explosion was visible from 1,000 kilometers away. Both ships were destroyed instantly. Commander Oh Jin and her bridge crew died as heroes. Their names would be remembered forever. The destruction of their flagship broke the Korvathi formation. Panic spread through their fleet. Ships that had fought with confidence minutes ago now fled in terror. Human vessels pursued them without mercy. Admiral Yoon Dae gave one final order. No survivors. Not one. Back on Earth, Admiral Han Su watched the battle data in real time. Beside her stood Dr. Shin Hana, the military's chief expert on alien psychology. Hana had spent her entire career studying how aliens thought and behaved. Nothing in her studies had prepared her for this. "The Korvathi are broken," Hana said quietly. "Their border fleet is completely destroyed. They will send everything now. Their entire military. Every ship they have." Han Su nodded. "Good. That is exactly what I want." Hana turned to look at her commander. "Admiral, with respect, we cannot fight their entire military. We won this battle because we had surprise and new weapons. They will adapt. They will learn. Our next engagement will be much more difficult. I know." "Then what is your plan?" Han Su was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, and it was a cold, terrible smile. "Doctor, do you know why I became a soldier?" "No, Admiral." "Because I understood something that most people do not understand. War is not about strength. It is not about numbers. It is not about technology. War is about will. The side that refuses to quit is the side that wins." She turned to face Hana directly. "The Korvathi have a larger fleet. They have better technology. They have more resources. But they do not have what we have. They do not have 18 million ghosts screaming for justice. They do not have billions of humans who just learned that their children, their parents, their friends have been harvested like cattle for 50 years. Han Su's eyes were hard as stone. "The Korvathi think this is a war. They are wrong. This is not a war. This is a reckoning. And we will not stop until every Korvathi who participated in the harvesting is dead or in chains. We will not stop until their empire is ashes. We will not stop until the entire galaxy understands one simple truth." "What truth is that, Admiral?" Han Su looked out at the stars. "That humanity protects its own, no matter the cost, no matter how long it takes, no matter how powerful the enemy. You take our people, you face our wrath, and our wrath has no limit." She turned back to her command console. "Order Admiral Yoon to continue the advance. We stop when they are finished, not before." The Galactic Assembly was falling apart. Ambassador Rethi had served in this hall for 200 years. He had seen crises before. He had seen wars and plagues and natural disasters. But he had never seen anything like this. Representatives from 47 species screamed at each other. Some demanded intervention to stop the human advance. Others argued that the Korvathi deserved everything they got. A few sat silently, watching the chaos with expressions of fear or, strangely, satisfaction. "We must act." Ambassador Yeth of the Morthani Federation shouted, his insect body clicking with agitation. "The humans are destroying everything. They have no regard for galactic law. They have no respect for established borders." "Galactic law?" Ambassador Terrell of the Netherray Collective replied, his gray skin flushed with anger. What law protects the Korvathi after what they have done? We have evidence now. Undeniable evidence. The Korvathi have been harvesting sentient species for thousands of years. The humans are not the only victims. They are simply the first victims to fight back. The hall erupted again. Accusations flew back and forth. Ancient alliances cracked under the pressure. Species that had been friends for centuries now looked at each other with suspicion and fear, because the truth was spreading. And the truth was terrible. The Netherai had been collecting information for decades. They had suspected the Korvathi of terrible crimes, but they had never been able to prove anything. Now, with the human invasion exposing Korvathi secrets, the proof was everywhere. Species that had disappeared throughout galactic history. Civilizations that had simply vanished without explanation. Colony ships that had never arrived at their destinations. All of them had one thing in common. All of them had been visited by the Korvathi shortly before they vanished. The Korvathi called it calling the weak. They believed that less advanced species existed only to serve the greater civilizations. They believed that harvesting other beings was not murder. It was simply using resources. For 3,000 years, they had operated in secret, taking what they wanted and destroying anyone who discovered the truth, until humanity. Ambassador Rethi finally restored order by threatening to eject anyone who spoke out of turn. He stood at the central platform, his old body tired but his mind sharp. "We must make a decision," he said. "The human fleet is advancing through Korvathi territory. They have already captured or destroyed 47 Korvathi colonies. They show no signs of stopping. We can intervene, we can support the Korvathi, or we can remain neutral." Support the Korvathi? Ambassador Terrell laughed bitterly. "After what we have learned? Any species that supports the Korvathi is admitting that they approve of harvesting sentient beings. And any species that supports humanity is endorsing total war without negotiation." Ambassador Yeth replied, "The humans have rejected every attempt at peace talks. They have refused all compromise. They are not fighting for justice. They are fighting for revenge. Is there a difference?" Someone asked from the back of the hall. No one had an answer. The vote was held. 7 species voted to support humanity. 12 voted to support the Korvathi. The rest, including the Valani, abstained. The assembly declared official neutrality. It did not matter. Humanity had never asked for permission. Far from the politics of the assembly, Sergeant Beat Minji led her squad through the ruins of a Korvathi processing facility on the planet Vorith 3. The fighting had ended hours ago. Now came the harder part. Minji was 35 years old, a career soldier who had enlisted after her brother disappeared on a colony ship 10 years ago. She had always wondered what happened to him. Part of her had always hoped he was still alive somewhere. Now she wished she had never learned the truth. The processing facility was massive, built deep underground to hide it from orbital sensors. Her squad moved through endless corridors lined with pods. Glass pods, each one containing a body. "Sergeant," Private Namjuri called out. His voice was shaking. "You need to see this." Minji walked over to where Juri was standing. The young private was staring at a row of pods, his face white as paper. Inside the pods were beings from at least a dozen different species. Humans, Nethari, Villani, others that Minji did not recognize. They were alive but barely. Tubes ran into their heads, slowly draining something from their brains. "They are harvesting neural fluid," Dr. Han Soman said. She was the squad's medical officer, and her hands were shaking as she examined the pods. The victims are kept alive as long as possible to maximize extraction. Some of these people have been here for years. Decades, maybe. Minji felt sick. She had known, intellectually, what the Korvathi were doing. But seeing it was different. Seeing the faces of the victims, twisted in silent agony, was different. Can we save them? She asked. Dr. On's face was grim. Some of them. The ones who have been here the shortest time. The others. She shook her head. The damage is too severe. Their minds are gone. We can only end their suffering. Minji nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. They continued through the facility, documenting everything. They found thousands of pods. They found processing equipment designed to extract and store neural fluid. They found records stretching back hundreds of years, listing every species the Corvathi had harvested. And then they found the children's section. Minji had seen terrible things in her career. She had fought in battles and seen friends die. She thought she was prepared for anything. She was wrong. The children's section contained hundreds of young beings from dozens of species. Human children. Nethari children. Children from species that had gone extinct centuries ago. The youngest was perhaps 3 years old. The oldest was maybe 10. All of them were alive. All of them were being harvested. Private Jury fell to his knees and vomited. Dr. On was crying. Even Minji, the soldier who had trained herself never to show weakness, felt tears running down her face. One of the pods contained a human girl. She looked about 8 years old, with dark hair and pale skin. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. But when Minji approached, the girl's eyes moved. She was awake, aware. "Doctor," Minji said urgently. "This one. Can you save her?" On rushed over and examined the pod. Yes. She is one of the recent ones. I can disconnect her safely." They worked for an hour to free the girl from the pod. When it was finally done, Minji held the child in her arms. The girl was weak, confused, and terrified. But she was alive. "What is your name?" Minji asked gently. The girl stared at her for a long moment. "I do not remember," she whispered. "They took my name. They took everything. I only remember pain." Minji held the girl close and made a promise. A promise to herself. A promise to every victim in this terrible place. "They will pay," she said. "I swear to you, they will pay for what they have done." The footage from Vor 3 was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species saw the processing facilities. Every species saw the victims. Every species saw the children. Ambassador Rethi watched the footage in his private quarters. When it ended, he sat in silence for a long time, and he did something he had not done in 200 years. He wept out the message from Admiral Han Su, arrived an hour later. It was short and direct. To all members of the Galactic Assembly, you have seen what the Corvathi have done. You have seen the truth. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Stand aside or stand with the harvesters. There is no third option. We expect no help. We ask for no permission. We will do what must be done. And when it is over, the galaxy will never forget what happens to those who prey upon the innocent. Rethi read the message 3 times. Then he deleted it and stared out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were burning their way toward the Corvathi homeworld, and the galaxy could only watch. Korra Prime was the heart of the Corvathi Empire. It was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Orbital defense platforms formed a ring of steel and fire around the world. A planetary shield protected the surface from bombardment. 800 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled in Corvathi history, waited to defend their homeworld. Admiral Han Su arrived with 1,200. The humans had lost many ships in the months of fighting. But for every ship that fell, 2 more came to take its place. Shipyards on Earth and a dozen colony worlds worked day and night. building new vessels faster than the Korvathi could destroy them. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, eager to fight for their species. Humanity, for the first time in its history, was truly united. The Battle of Korva Prime began at dawn, local time. It would last for 3 days. Admiral Han Su commanded the battle from the bridge of the battleship Righteous Fury. She had not slept in 48 hours. Her face was pale and lined with exhaustion, but her eyes were clear and sharp, missing nothing. "All ships," she said calmly. "Begin attack." The first day was the worst. Korvathi defense platforms tore into the human fleet with devastating fire. Ships exploded by the dozen. Thousands of human soldiers died in the cold darkness of space. The Korvathi fleet, fighting desperately to protect their homeworld, threw everything they had at the invaders, but the humans kept coming. Captain Park Yuna commanded the cruiser Vengeance. She had changed much since escaping New Bizen 6 months ago. The young, frightened communications officer had become a hardened warrior. She had lost her father. She had lost her home. She had nothing left to lose. Her ship was among the first to breach the orbital defense line. Korvathi fighters swarmed around her, trying to destroy the Vengeance before it could reach the planet. Yuna's crew shot them down one by one, their weapons blazing without pause. Then the boarding party came. A Korvathi assault shuttle crashed into the Vengeance's hull, cutting through the metal like paper. 30 Korvathi soldiers poured into the ship, their weapons firing. They were heading for the bridge. They intended to capture the ship and turn its weapons against the human fleet. Yuna met them in the corridor outside the bridge. The battle lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of close combat, of hand-to-hand fighting in the narrow hallways of a starship. Yuna fought with everything she had. She used her pistol until it ran out of ammunition. She used her knife until it broke. She used her bare hands when nothing else was left. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Yuna standing in a corridor filled with bodies. 30 Korvathi soldiers lay dead at her feet. Her uniform was torn and soaked with blood, some of it her own. A deep cut ran across her face from forehead to chin. "Captain," the rescue team leader said in shock, "you should be in medical bay. Your wounds." Yuna shook her head. "I will rest when this is over. Not before." She walked back to the bridge and continued commanding her ship. The second day saw the planetary shields fall. Human bombers, protected by swarms of fighters, broke through the Korvathi defenses and struck the shield generators on the surface. One by one, the massive machines failed. The sky above Korva Prime, which had been hidden behind an energy barrier for 1,000 years, was suddenly open and vulnerable. The third day was the end. The Korvathi High Council watched from their palace as human ships descended through the clouds. They had sent every message they could think of. Surrender offers, peace proposals, threats, bribes. Nothing had worked. The humans simply ignored them and kept advancing. When the last Korvathi warship was destroyed, Admiral Han Su landed on the surface of Korva Prime with a single escort. Sergeant Beat Minji walked beside her, carrying a small figure in her arms. The child from Vorith III, the girl who had forgotten her own name. The High Archon of the Korvathi Empire met them in the throne room. He was ancient, his gray scales faded with age. He had ruled 300 star systems. He had commanded armies that conquered worlds. Now he stood before 2 human women and a traumatized child, and he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. "You have won," he said, his voice weak and tired. "We accept defeat. Name your terms." Admiral Han Su looked at him without expression. "Your terms are not negotiable. They are as follows. First, you will release every captive being from every processing facility in your empire. All of them, regardless of species. Second, you will dismantle your military completely. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. Third, you will surrender every individual who participated in the harvesting program. They will stand trial for crimes against sentient life. And if we refuse, then we will continue until there are no Korvathi left to refuse. The High Archon closed his eyes. He had lived for 300 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had always believed the Korvathi were different, better, superior. He had believed they would rule forever. He opened his eyes and looked at the human, admiral, small, fragile, mortal. Yet here she stood, in his throne room, having brought his entire civilization to its knees. How? He asked. You were nothing, primitives, a young species barely out of your cradle. How did you do this? Han Su did not smile. She did not show any emotion at all. She simply pointed at the child in Sergeant Minji's arms. You took our children, she said. You should have taken our hands. The High Archon did not understand. Han Su did not explain. She simply turned and walked away. Her work complete, the Korvathi accepted all terms within the hour. 1 year later, the Galactic Assembly met to vote on humanity's membership. The vote was unanimous. Every species, including those who had once dismissed humans as primitive and emotional, now welcomed them into the galactic community. Ambassador Cho Nari was the first human to take her seat in the assembly. She was young for an ambassador, only 40 years old, but she had earned her position through years of diplomatic service. She had also lost 2 brothers to Korvathi harvesting, though their bodies were never found. When the session began, the assembly fell silent. Every representative waited to hear what the human ambassador would say. Cho Nari stood. She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of beings from dozens of species. Some looked at her with respect, some with fear, some with curiosity. She addressed them all. We are not conquerors, she began. We are not monsters. We are simply a species that protects its own. The Korvathi learned what happens when you threaten what we love. Let this serve as a lesson to all. She paused, letting her words settle. Humanity asks for very little. Peace, trade, friendship. We want to explore the stars alongside you. We want to learn from you and share our knowledge in return. We want to build a future where all species can live without fear. Her voice grew harder. But if you harm us, if you take our people, if you threaten our children, we will not stop. We will not negotiate. We will not forgive. We will find you, no matter how far you run, no matter how powerful you think you are. And we will remind you why the universe taught everything to fear the dark. She looked around the hall one final time. Because in the dark, you might find us. The assembly was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Ambassador Cho Nari sat down. In the years that followed, humanity became one of the most respected species in the galaxy. They were valued as allies, trusted as friends, and welcomed as partners in exploration and discovery. But no species ever forgot the lesson of the Korvathi. War. No species ever threatened a human colony again. And somewhere, in a small apartment on Earth, a young girl who had once forgotten her name was learning it again. Her new family had given her a new name. A human name. They called her Hope, because that was what she represented. Hope that even in the darkest moments, someone would come. Someone would fight. Someone would never give up. That was the promise humanity had made to the galaxy. And it was a promise they would always keep.